You might have heard of Undercover Boss, but have you heard of Undercover Wealth? How to live wealthy without letting anyone know? If not, let's cover a few ways in this video. And hi, if you're new to the channel, my name is Tay from Financial Tortoise, where we learn to grow our wealth slow and steady. Number one way to practice undercover wealth. Drive an undercover car. You know those cars that you barely notice because they're so plain and vanilla to look at? In America, and in many developed nations, nothing else comes close to garnering attention than the car a person drives. Someone drives up in a brand new Lamborghini, and what do? Even if you aren't into cars, you notice it right away. You've seen them in movies. You've seen them with celebrities and the ultra rich. So you take a look because you're curious. However, if you want to practice undercover wealth, you want to drive an undercover car. A car that no one will give a second look. According to the latest Bloomberg report, Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, has a net worth of over $96 billion, making him the 10th richest person in the world. He could easily drive the fanciest car money can buy, but do you know what his preferred car of choice is? A Honda Fit, the most boring car you can think of with a starting price of around $15,000. I mean, with his net worth, he could probably buy a whole medium-sized car company and still have money left over. Now in the Kim family, our net worth is nowhere close to Mark Zuckerberg. However, we do try to practice this principle of undercover cars as well. My wife drives a very high-end electric vehicle, a 5-year-old Nissan Leaf, and I also drive a very fancy off-roading vehicle, a Subaru Crosstrek. Both are excellent vehicles for our usage, but I can't remember the last time someone gave it a second look on the street. And as weird as this sounds, I find tremendous pride in that. Number two way to practice undercover wealth. Practice unassuming style. Clothes and accessories are another way we signal our wealth and status to the world. We automatically give attention to someone wearing a Valentino suit and styling a Chanel handbag. These brands, they don't run in hundreds of dollars, rather thousands and sometimes in tens of thousands. But if you want to practice undercover wealth, where you go about your day without people thinking you have money, that's hard to do if you're walking around in a $10,000 watch and a $15,000 heels. And I'm not here to say you shouldn't love nice clothes and nice brands. My wife is our home's fashionista and she loves beautiful clothes and I'm all for it. As long as you're doing it for yourself and not for someone else. The key is to be thoughtful about the choice of clothing or accessories you enjoy if you want to avoid attention and practice undercover wealth. Some of my personal favorite clothing brands that are of high quality but I don't think scream attention are these: North Face and Uniqlo. For my wife, Everlane and Cezanne. I know, they aren't the cheapest, but from my personal experience, they last long and look pretty decent from a fashion perspective. And I know everyone's clothing taste is different, so let me know in the comments below what some of your favorite undercover wealth clothing brands are. Another nice thing about practicing unassuming style is that you want to attract people who will treat you differently based on your fashion style. I've known individuals who would completely change their demeanor based on someone's perceived wealth based on their clothes or accessories. I don't know about you, but I personally am not a big fan of being friends with such individuals. A quick interruption before we move on. If you haven't yet downloaded your free copy of my 10-step guide to securing your family's financial future, I highly recommend you do so today. Not only is this a great free resource for your financial journey, but you'll also be joining my email newsletter. Newsletter where you can connect with me directly, as well as be the first to know regarding any new services or products I plan on offering in the future. Please go to my website at financialtortoise.com and download your free copy today. I'll also have a link in the description below. Alright, with that said, let's get back to the video. Number three way to practice undercover wealth. Splurge, but splurge quietly. You may think that because I'm a personal finance YouTuber, wear the same shirt every day, and don't buy new shoes for my kids until they completely fall off, I'm a complete miser. Well, that could be true. But sometimes we occasionally splurge and treat ourselves a bit. For example, when it comes to family trips, we like the finer things in life. Call me spoiled, but I like to stay in nice hotels compared to your local motels. Of course, I use points to mitigate the cost. When we eat out, we like to try out nice fancy restaurants. Of course, we try not to overdo it by going out every night. But I think it's important that you give yourself permission to splurge if you have been responsible with your finances. The key is not to go overboard through overjustification, and the theme of undercover wealth, not flaunt it. Number four way to practice undercover wealth. Avoid private clubs, or any exclusive clubs where entry is determined by one's perceived wealth. You heard of the old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And thus I used to think that if I wanted to move ahead in my life, I needed to surround myself with wealthy, successful individuals. Individuals who are part of exclusive private clubs like Golf Country Club, high-end sports club, or elite social clubs. But do you know what I realized after having been to several of these? They aren't that amazing as people make it out to be. Yes, they might serve a level of purpose for super high net worth individuals. However, for average individuals like you and I feel they could actually work against our ability to build sustainable wealth. When you're constantly around people who have money, and like to show that they have money, money can easily take the center stage of our lives. We become what we're constantly exposed to. If everyone at the club is talking about their latest high-risk investment and their latest trip to the Maldives, what do you think will percolate through our minds when we get home? Ultra high net worth individuals have very different risk tolerance because of where they're at with their money. The way they live, invest, and spend is completely different from everyone else. A person A worth $100 million might be striving to turn that $100 million into $1 billion in the next 10 years, whereas a person B might be looking to just have a simple, middle-class retirement in 30 years. The investment strategies of these two individuals are and should be completely different because their goals are different. So don't think you need to join one of these exclusive private clubs in order to find financial success. They could actually work against our wealth journey. But before I move on, I need to be honest with you guys. I lied. I'm actually a hypocrite because I'm part of an exclusive club. It's called the YMCA, which leads to the next strategy. The number 5 way to practice undercover wealth is to join a local community group. This could be a community activity group hosted by your local city. If you're religious institutions like church, temples, mosques, or other places of worship, or my favorite, family athletic clubs like the YMCA. Essentially groups and organizations that are open to everyone and not exclusive based on someone's financial status or perceived financial status. There's actually a lot of truth to the statement that it's not what you know, it's who you know. Who you spend time with will shape your worldview and eventually your behavior. As stated earlier, when you're constantly around people who love luxury goods and fancy toys, you can't help yourself but eventually want it as well. But when you expose yourself to community groups or you meet people from all walks of life, you're forced to broaden your horizon and for me personally, keep me grounded on reality. We want to interact with people from all walks of life because that's how we can grow and also gain wiser and broader perspective. For me, I find that when I'm part of a community group, it allows me to interact with people who are very different from me. My upbringing, my education, and my view of the world. At times it could be uncomfortable, but in the long run, actually very beneficial. But what to talk about when we meet with people? Well, let's start out by what not to talk about. Number 6 way to practice undercover wealth. Be very careful discussing money. Money is one of the most sensitive topics outside of politics and religion. It's so closely tied to our livelihood, aspirations, and well-being. For some, they built the ability to be comfortable talking about money. But for many, it can evoke a range of emotions ranging from anxiety, shame, to sometimes even jealousy. The truth is that everyone's financial situation is different. No two people, regardless of how similar their life story may be, have the same financial worldviews and financial situation. And when I talk about money in this channel, I try to be careful of this fact. The money perspective I talk about here is based on my specific experience, education, and worldview. But yours is different and should be different. So let's be careful discussing money, especially if we want to practice undercover wealth. Unless they ask specifically, no one really wants to know where we're investing our money, what our financial goals are, or worse, how much money we're making. Number 7 way to practice undercover wealth. In line with being careful discussing money, let's also be careful discussing our career. In today's society, it becomes almost second nature to ask what someone does for a living when we meet them for the first time. It comes right after talking about the weather. However, similar to money, careers are often closely tied to one's identity and sense of self-worth. You might be in a career where you feel confident and proud of what you achieved, but you just don't know where the other party is coming from. I remember when I was transitioning from the military into the corporate world, feeling very lost as regards to my identity. I was interviewing for jobs, but wasn't finding much success because frankly, I wasn't very good at it. Whenever someone asked me what I did for a living, I remember feeling the sense of anxiety because I didn't know how to answer. In between jobs, out of work veteran, aspiring entrepreneur, what could I say without making me feel like a loser? Instead of asking about someone's career, I personally like to ask people about their personal lives or anything else they seem to be interested in. Dale Carnegie, the author of How to Win Friends and Influence People, says, talk in terms of the other person's interest. When you first talk to people, try to gauge what they're interested in. Is it the weather? Or maybe their last trip to the national park? Or how about Lionel Messi signing with Inter Miami? They'll definitely keep the conversation going for at least 45 minutes. The bottom line is, let's resist the default to start talking about what we do for a living and focus on getting to know the other person as a person and not based on what we do. Number 8 way to practice undercover wealth. Use social media carefully. Be very thoughtful about what you share online. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc. The honest truth is that there is no shortage of perceived wealth image online. If what we saw on social media was actually true, the majority of people in the world would actually be wealthy. However, the truth is far from reality. Let's be careful about joining the masses that post every luxury item they purchase online and every fancy trip on Instagram. Share images and videos to stay connected with friends, but be thoughtful about what you post online. Number 9 way to practice undercover wealth. Give quietly. Giving is an excellent way to give back to our community. None of us reach the top of the hill alone, and giving reminds us of that fact constantly. But sometimes when you give to charities for a specific event or purpose, they want to recognize you as a donor. So they would do things like this. List your name as a donor on the website, recognize you publicly during one of their events, or this is the best, engrave your name on a stone monument. It feels good to be recognized, however this really goes against being undercover with wealth, and it could actually create more headache than benefit. When you have your name out there as a donor, and a big donor at that, who else do you think will see that? Other organizations that are looking for donors. So don't be surprised after you've been publicly recognized as a donor, if you receive additional solicitation to give. And worse, you could even be a target for fraudulent activities because people will see that you have money. So if possible, give quietly. If there's a cause or an organization that you really like to support, give anonymously. Or at least ask the organization to keep your information private. Number 10 way to practice undercover wealth. Teach humility to our kids. Not only is this beneficial for the next generation, most often it is a good reminder to ourselves as well. When we teach something, it is actually us as a teacher that learn the most. If you're at a point in your financial life where you aren't worried about a roof over your head, clothes on your back, and where the next meal will come from, you are doing better than many people on earth. For thousands of years, this basic survival was what many people struggled with. So if you have a full stomach and a warm place to sleep, let's be thankful. And let's teach this to our children, educating our children about being humble and recognizing the importance of financial responsibility. As Uncle Ben advised young Peter Parker, with great power comes great responsibility. If you're mindful about money, practice frugal habits, and invest in low-cost, broad market index funds for a long period of time, it is not a matter of if you will achieve financial independence, but a question of when. And this power of financial independence will enable you to live a life of freedom that many have never fathomed. You'll work in a career you can love, live in a place you only dreamt of, and most importantly, spend time however you see fit. But one thing this power is not for is this: to show off to the world how awesome you are. Let's remind ourselves of that by teaching our next generation. Thank you guys for watching. In the line of building wealth, if you'd like to learn more about why I love to advocate for slow path to wealth, please check out my video here. Until next time, all the best.